Welcome to Evolving Into Her. I'm Ashley Hope, and this is your weekly check-in to get out of your head, into your body, and back into alignment with the version of you who's already living the vision. So grab your favorite cup of tea, settle in, and let's get into the show. Hey friends, welcome back to Evolving Into Her. I'm your host, Ashley Hope. Your big sis, your favorite cousin, the woman in your ear reminding you that you're evolving even on the days you can't see it yet. Before we settle in today, let me just say thank you per usual. Seriously, okay? The way this community has been showing up, sharing the episodes, sending me messages, commenting on Spotify, leaving reviews, rating the shows. It means everything to me. And like I've said in a previous episode, I do not take it for granted 1 second. Also, make sure you're on my email list, Her Insider. And that's where I keep you looped in on what's coming before it's announced anywhere else. If you want to be first to know when I open my one-on-one coaching books in 2026, when registration opens for the retreat I'm co-hosting with Yogi TB, when my new podcast officially drops. Hint, hint, there may be visuals. I heard a little birdie say that you may see me in this new podcast. Her Insider is where all of that is shared first. No algorithm, no missing the announcement, just me and you staying connected. And if you want to sign up, the link is in the show notes. It is free. All right. Let's take a breath and get into today's conversation because this one matters so much. Today, we're talking about something that shapes everything. It shapes your identity. It shapes your faith, your confidence, your mindset, your perspective, the way you make decisions, the way you hold yourself through a tough season. And it all comes back to one simple truth. What you remember shapes what you believe. Not what you've learned, not what you tell yourself when you're trying to hype yourself up, but what you remember. Okay, your brain isn't naturally pulling up your wins or your breakthroughs or the ways God covered you before. It's wired to pull fear first, and that shapes how you see yourself unless you know how to interrupt it. So today we're going to talk about remembering on purpose and how bringing your own story back into focus can literally shift your identity, your faith, the way you move through life. So grab something you can sip slow and let's get into the show. So have you ever wondered to yourself, like, why is it so easy to forget who you actually are? And not just a moment here or there. I mean, your whole track record, the resilience, the courage, the breakthroughs that didn't look like breakthroughs until later, because hindsight is 2020. God is funny like that. And we tend to forget because of something called negativity bias. You've probably heard this before. And this is really just the mind's habit of prioritizing anything stressful or threatening. And it stores these hard moments in high definition and the good moments in low light unless you bring them back intentionally. So unfortunately, your brain is not going to remind you, oh, hey, girl, remember when you rebuilt your entire life? Remember when you were so worried about the future and that blessing came out of nowhere? Remember when it worked out even though you were terrified? It's not going to do that, okay? Fear is the default setting. And so when your life gets loud, when it gets a little chaotic, your mind naturally will reach for the familiar memory. And usually it's the one rooted in stress and not strength. So you end up thinking, ooh, I don't know what to do here. This feels like too much. What if I can't handle this? But sister, I need you to pay attention, okay? Because the truth is, you've already lived through hard things. You survived hard seasons. You've already figured things out when it felt impossible, when you were confused. You've already been carried and guided and protected in ways you didn't fully understand until later. You just forgot. And when you forget your own story, belief starts to get a little shaky. Your faith, your trust, it starts to get a little shaky, right? So remembering is what brings you back to yourself and reminds you that if God has done it before, he can what? Do it again. Amen. Amen. Okay, so let's zoom out for a little second. So when you're looking at your life, and we're talking about the whole arc, not just the moment you're in. If you're looking at your whole life, you'll notice a pattern. And that pattern is not collapse. I promise you. It's not failure. It's not, oh, I never figured things out. Girl, your pattern is resilience. Your pattern is strength. Your pattern is being an overcomer. Your pattern is being a victor. It maybe hasn't looked perfect, but I know that about you because you're listening to this podcast. You're in this community. So I know you don't stay down. You might pause. You might cry it out. You might sit with yourself because you need a second. You need to take a breather. But friend, you don't stay down. And when you look back honestly, you'll see the seasons you survived without even realizing how strong you were at the time, how resilient you were. You'll see the responsibilities you carried, the situations you navigated, the moves you made with no blueprint, the emotional weight you held, and somehow you still kept going. Sis, your life has been a training ground for who you are becoming the whole time. You don't always feel prepared, but you always rise to the occasion. You don't always feel clear, but clarity always finds you, doesn't it? You don't always feel strong, but strength comes when it's needed. Your only real issue is that you don't slow down long enough to acknowledge the pattern. And because you forget the pattern, you meet new seasons like you're a beginner, when in reality, you're experienced. You've lived through enough to trust your evolution, to trust yourself. And when you remember who you've been, you show up differently for who you're becoming. And I know this in part because I've done a lot of market research. And in a lot of ways, my ideal client, my ideal listener, my ideal community member, she's just me in previous seasons of my life. I'm just talking to previous versions of myself. So you on the other end of this phone, okay? Because yeah, girl, we're on the phone having a chit chat. All right. I know that our stories are aligned in some way. Maybe not exactly, but there's something about my story that resonates with you. And if my story resonates, I know the heart posture also resonates. The character also resonates. The mindset also resonates in many ways. So I know that that strength is inside of you. I know that that resilience is inside of you. I know that that unshakable faith is there, even if you don't feel it yet. And y'all know I've talked about it on the podcast. I've had seasons in my life where everything that felt familiar fell apart at the same time. Seasons where I didn't feel brave or grounded or aligned or strong. Seasons where I looked around and thought, okay, this is not what I planned. Or I didn't ask for this. I don't know what God is doing right now. And in some of those seasons, forget doing the work. I was just trying to breathe. I was trying to catch my breath. I was trying to hold on to my wig. Okay. I was trying to keep the sparse edges that I had left. But what changed things for me wasn't pretending to be okay. It was remembering. And I had to start asking myself, Ashley, when have you been here before and it still worked out? When did clarity come after all this confusion, after all this doubt, after all this worry? When did you rebuild and stand on stronger ground? When did God protect you by removing something or someone you were holding on to? When did you figure it out when you felt unprepared, when you didn't have all the answers, when you didn't know the next steps? And every time I looked back, I found evidence. I found receipts. Some of these receipts were from years ago, some of them from last month. Sometimes it was from a moment I forgot about. And the more I remembered, the steadier I felt, the calmer I felt, the more aligned I felt. My breath slowed, it softened, the fear quieted. It didn't go away, but it was a little bit quieter. My trust rose. And it wasn't because the situation changed. It was because my perspective changed. And I realized that the scared version of me wasn't the whole story. She was just the version who forgot how strong I was, how resilient I was, how much faith I did have. And the real me, the woman with history, the woman with resilience, with faith, and with receipts, the real me had to step back in, okay? And remembering her brought her back. So you likely already know this, but I'm going to remind you for note-taking sake, belief comes from whatever your brain rehearses the most. So if your mind rehearses fear, you're going to start believing fear. If your mind rehearses evidence of your strength, of your worthiness, of your faith, of your resilience, then you start believing that. You start believing the truth of who you are. And because of negativity bias, the painful memories kind of load faster and more vividly than the ones that will show you your strength, that will show you your resilience, that will show you how much faith you actually have. And that's why you can replay an embarrassing moment from like 2019 instantly, but you have to really think about a win from last week. I know, right? So ghetto. Sometimes I think like, God, why did you create our minds like this to default to negativity? Like, I don't understand that. But then I think about it again and I'm like, oh, but you gave us the tools to rewire it. My bad. My bad. You know what you're doing. Okay. So what ends up happening if you don't keep this in check, if you're not intentional, if you're not aware of what's happening? You build your identity using the wrong memories and you start believing you can't trust yourself. God feels distant. You're behind. You're stuck. Not because those things are true, but because you're rehearsing the wrong data. Sister, the identity that you're stepping into, the woman that you're becoming, she needs evidence. She needs evidence of your strength. She needs evidence of your resilience. She needs evidence of your faith, of your courage, of the time you set boundaries, of the times that you said no, of the times that you prioritize yourself, of the time that you rested instead of overextending yourself. She needs receipts. And that evidence, it comes from memory. And when you consistently revisit the moments you survived, the moments you grew, the moments God covered you, your belief strengthens. Your nervous system will start to calm down. Your decisions will start to shift. Your confidence becomes more grounded. And that's why consistent and conscious remembering is essential. It's a non-negotiable. It's a rewiring tool. So let's move into something practical. And I'm going to call this the lifetime receipts log. Okay. You need a place where your truth can live, not your fear, not your spiraling thoughts, not your what ifs, your truth. And that's your lifetime receipts log. Now you can call this whatever you want. I like the idea of lifetime receipts log because it implies that this is ongoing. This is an ongoing container to collect your receipts. This is your evidence bank. The moments where things aligned, the moments that strengthened you, the moments that surprised you, the moments that God showed up for you, the moments you handled something better than your old self would have. And this lifetime receipts log can live anywhere. You can put in your notes app. I like the notes app because we always have our phones on us, but you can also put it in a journal. You can make a voice note folder. You can have a screenshot album titled Receipts. Just keep it simple, keep it accessible, and most of all, most importantly, keep it consistent. And in this lifetime receipts log, you can document moments like the time something worked out that you were stressed about, maybe a closed door that ended up being protection, a time when clarity came after all this confusion, maybe a time you honored a boundary or you surprised yourself with your wisdom and your confidence, maybe a time God whispered something you needed to hear or you handled something with more maturity than the old you. Every one of those is a receipt. And when your mind starts spiraling, your receipts give you language. It gives you evidence. It gives you grounding. It gives you truth. So yeah, your fear is loud and it's always going to be there, unfortunately. I hate to tell you that. The fear is always going to be there. But baby, your receipts are louder. You just got to give them a place to live and you have to revisit them consistently. So you remember them because it's easy to forget them in times where life be life in. And when you consistently remember, everything shifts and you'll notice you stop panicking so quickly. You breathe differently, you move differently, you make decisions from your identity and not from the fear. Again, the fear is going to be there, but imagine starting to make decisions from your identity. And when you make remembering a practice, your faith becomes embodied and it's not just theoretical. Your self-talk changes, it softens. You're not so critical and harsh and judgmental. Your confidence becomes rooted. It becomes your foundation. You become a woman who carries herself with the wisdom of her own life, not the anxiety and the uncertainty of the moment. Remembering grounds you. It brings you back home to yourself. And it reminds you that your life has never fallen apart without coming back together in a better way. Maybe not in the way you envisioned it, maybe not in the way that you imagined it, maybe not even the way that you preferred it, but it has come back together. Sis, as you move through your day, hold on to this. You've lived too much and grown through too many chapters to forget who you are now. Okay? To forget the woman that you've worked so hard to become. You're not new to resilience. You're not new to rebuilding. You're not new to God making a way. You've seen it before. You've experienced it before. Your only job now is to remember. Remember your receipts. Remember your strength. Remember your resilience. Remember the woman who's already survived hard seasons and you made it through. You made it through. Remember the clarity that came after the confusion, after the worry, after the doubt. Remember the times God carried you consistently. Because when you remember, your belief shifts. And when your belief shifts, you shift. Your perspective shifts. Your life shifts. So use your lifetime receipts log. Again, you can call it whatever you want. But let it remind you of the truth when fear gets loud. Because it will, okay? It's not going away, unfortunately. But let this lifetime receipts log remind you of the truth of who you are, of all of the work that you've already done, of the woman you've become and the woman you are becoming, and the truth of who God is and who God has been and who he continues to be. Okay? And before you go, please make sure you follow the show so new episodes drop right into your feed. You don't have to hunt for them. You don't have to refresh the app. While you're there, tap those 5 stars in both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you feel called to, please leave me a written review on Apple Podcasts. I read every single one, and they really help bring this show in front of more women who need these types of conversations. Sister, I love you, and I'll see you on Sunday for the next coffee chat. I'm Ashley Hope, and until next time, stay devoted to your becoming. I'm Ashley Hope, and you've been listening to Evolving into Her. Thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you for choosing her, for choosing yourself. And until next time, stay in devotion to your becoming.